That's good. All right. So what do I want to cover today? I want to cover intro to automation. Why do we do it? And why automation is needed? And when do we even use automation? Because just because you can write some code, do you want to just create some automation and just leave it or show it to your boss and be happy about it? Or do you want to actually use it? What is the business value for automation? And then lastly, what is Selenium? And then we'll create some test cases with Selenium IDE. Now, here's the promise. End of the class, you will be able to write some test cases yourself with Selenium IDE. Okay, you will be. So if you pay attention, you will definitely be able to write some test cases. So I'm not going to explain what test cases is because you guys did that yesterday, but this definitely helps me to do my side of the course today, which is um, teaching you guys how to write test script, or at least how to write these test cases in Selenium IDE, which essentially automates. The first thing is intro to automation. So how many people understand what automation means? Now, specifically for software testing, normally automation is basically something that being handled without human interaction, right? Something that is being done, or some sort of work is being done without, let's say, any sort of human interaction or any sort of human to make that action for the machine to do something, right? Now, what is automation to your to your understanding for software testing, right? Anyone wants to put their thought? It doesn't have to be right. You can try, and then we'll explain what automation is, and after that we'll um, go about what type of automation can we do, what are some of the automation testings that we can do with automation tool.
The,
Um,
okay, go ahead.
Yeah, whoever wants to go first, go for it.
so I think automation is, I don't know how to use the right term, but it's when you use a tool or an app that automatically does the testing, runs the test for you.
Hmm. Okay, that's
The,
that.
This
Yeah,
make the less human effort.
yeah, that's true.
right. So if that's the case, that means you guys are the one who's building that tool, right? The automation tool, or the app that you're talking about. So either way, you'll be building those automation test cases or tools. Now, this is where you'll probably enjoy a little bit because you're learning fundamentals, and it's not going to be too much of fun, but you're learning about the essential of testing. But here, when you do automation, you will feel a little bit more exciting because you will see that something's happening on your browser. It's automatically doing something for you, and you're gonna probably some people will probably get excited, which is pretty good, right? Because that way you get more motivation to be here and do these classes. So first thing first, what is automation? Anything that removes the human interaction, it could be automation, right? So when we do automation testing, and I'll just show you guys. So let's say we go to Google, right? You're in Google, and you type, let's say I want, okay, so look at this trend. So the first one, when is the third stimulus check is coming? Boom, right? And you did it. And now if you're a Google engineer and you're doing the testing to make sure that the search engine actually works, then the first thing you would do is type the test data, which is when is this third round check coming? And then you want to make sure the result actually contains relevant information based on what you see. Okay, so what are the relevant result for the search string? So this is a string, right? So I'll teach you guys a few things in the beginning. Nothing crazy. What is a string? The string is anything inside of a code, so that could be a one word, one character, that could be many character, that could be alphanumeric. Anything that is inside of this code is a string in a programming. Okay, so now if I'm searching for a string, that could be like, okay, what is, like, let's say 14 plus 2, whatever, right? And now it gives me like some sort of math 16 right here. Now, if you want to validate Google search engine and you write something like that, is this still a string? And the answer is yes, because you are having spaces, you are having spaces. These are characters, still a character, right? It's not just nothing, it's not just empty. Space is still a character. And then you're having yourself a special character and you're having some alphabetic, sorry, numeric, and here you got alphabetic characters. But still, you're writing this information here. So when you do your automation, you'll have to type the same way, right? You'll have to type the same way with automation tests, and then you want to validate if this is 16. Okay. So that's how we do it. Any test. So yesterday, when you guys did the test cases, you guys learned what is test cases. And I know there are a few sections within test cases, like the description, steps to reproduce, and the expected and actual. With automation, we write expected and actual at the same time, right? If your application is ready to be automated, meaning developer has written their code and is deployed to a specific server, and now you're using that server to automate, you will be able to write your automated test. If, let's say, you're automating something and you go into the website, right, and you want to automate that, and you don't see the feature, let's say there is a third button should be here, okay? So the Google developers, they have created a third button right here, and you want to automate that. So right now, let's say, can you automate it? No, because this button doesn't exist yet, because the code that the guy or the developer has written, it doesn't even exist just yet into this server. So somebody has to push this code here, and then when you see the third button, then you can automate, okay? But can you plan for automate? Can you write test cases and test scenarios and all that ahead of automation? Yes, you can. So make sure, test scenario, test cases, you can already write them somewhere, depending on what type of tool you're using in your company. And then when the application is ready, you can certainly automate. And automation doesn't have to be, oh, you need to do it right at this second. It could be something that you take a little bit of time, because automation is for the future, right? It's not for like finding bug right now, right now. Automation doesn't find a bug right now. Okay. Um, anybody was anybody is confused right now when I'm saying automation doesn't find bugs. Anybody is confused. You want me to explain? There is a Zoom feature where you have like yes or no thing. Maybe you want to use that. Let's see. I want to turn. Okay. So there is, I believe there is a Zoom feature that you can put like yes or no. I don't know if you guys can see it. Um, so, try to use that if you don't want to speak. And that way, okay, cool. Somebody just wrote no, they don't have any questions. Okay, good. All right. So,
Like, can you just say a little bit about this? The automation doesn't find bugs.
sure, sure. Why do I say automation doesn't find bugs, right? Okay. So normal procedure, and I'm not even gonna talk about books or anything. So like if you want to make sense of how do you write automation tests, right? You're writing, the first thing is analyzing the report, or sorry, result, requirement, right? So you study the requirement. Then what do? Then you write test scenario or test plan. So I'm not gonna write test plan. Sometimes gets fixed, so some skips depending on where you are. So if you're in agile, then you go into test scenarios and then test cases, right? And then out of these test cases, or when you are writing these test scenarios, you already divide what should be test cases and what should be test automation, right? So let's say you wrote 10 scenarios and you decided 6 to be test script. Test script is going to be 6 and 4 is going to be manual test cases, what you guys did yesterday. Okay. So that's where you make the decision, right? Now, and then after 4, you basically execute. So execute test and then log and track bugs, right? So this is like your flow of testing. Now, the reason I said why you don't find bugs is because when you write your scenarios, the 10 scenarios, then you have your 4 test cases and you still have 6 to be automated. But when you automate these 6, you still have to do a manual test, meaning like if you're automating something, for example, I feel lucky button, right? You want to click on it and see what really happens in this case, right? And if this is the case, that is, it's bringing you to an image or some sort of like random things, and you want to test that, then you need to be able to experience that first. You click on it, and you pretty much continue to click on I I am feeling lucky, right? And so that manual portion is the first thing that will find if there's an issue, right? So you already found the issue and you put it away, you log and track the bugs and get it fixed, right? Or exploratory testing. But automation, you're writing it for the future. So when you write the automation script, what does that mean? That means that you would like to execute this script on demand whenever you need to, in order to see if there are significant changes to the application without your knowledge, without QA acknowledgement, right? So that means somebody has made some changes and that caused this button to be broken. And now one day you're running your script and you found that issue. Okay. So this is like a net. You're creating a net. So that way, if there is anyhow there is some water flowing through your, let's say, small river, whatever, you will be able to catch some fish. So you already putting your net ahead of time. Or let's say you building a dam, and you will have the water release at some point. So let's say weekly basis release the water in your dam, and you should be able to catch some fishes while you release some water. Then yes, what you can do, or maybe like these are invasive fishes and you don't want them to go on to the other side of the how do I say, lake. So you can then build a net, and in this case is the automation script to say, okay, these, if you see this and that, I want to catch, and I want to basically stop at that second and then correct it before it goes out there. So automation is for the future. Automation is to catch issues later on. It does take a little bit more time than doing manual testing, and that leads us to why even doing automation, right? If this is the case, and when should we even do the automation, right? Now, automation in theory, like if you have time and energy, you can automate everything, right? You can probably automate everything. But should you be automating everything? That's the question, right? If just because you can, that doesn't mean you should, right? So automation is a tool, right? When you do your testing, think about this way, right? You are a tester, you study the requirement scenarios, and then after that you have some to be test cases and some to be test script, and then you execute. In this case, automation is just there to help you as a tool to make sure that the test cases, when you execute, it takes some time, and in the future when you execute, it will take the same amount of time, versus the automation script where it will take, initially it will take some time, but then the next time you run it, it'll be pretty much seconds, matter of seconds, it will tell you either pass or fail. So now if you run it every week, then how many times a year do you run? So think about why automation is significant, is because right now many companies, especially with agile, you're doing 2 weeks releases. And if you are testing, let's say, 2000 test cases every release, then it will take you 3 to 4 days, right? And you don't have 3 to 4 days when you're working in 2 weeks sprint, right? You don't have that, because 3 to 4 days is crazy, right? Because what happens is that you spend your one and a half day and you found a major issue, and now developers are fixing that major issue. Now you have to start over again because they fixed the new issue, and you want to test everything all over again. Now you're just adding more and more and more days to your testing, and that is the regression testing, right? Compared to automation, it'll be like a couple hours later, it'll say, okay, you know what, all of the test cases pass. Or even let's say all of the test cases pass and only 1 or 2 test cases did not pass. And those test cases, you can manually go in and investigate and to make sure that these are not real cause or real issues. Okay, so going back, right? So when do we use it? We use it to make sure that whenever we have releases that happens more often, we use this script to make sure that our application is still intact. We have to have good amount of test coverage to make sure that we feel confident before going for a release. Um, why do we need this automation tool? Is because again, you are a QA engineer or you are a QA analyst, and instead of you manually try to say, okay, I'm going to type here first one, just like boundary value analysis, right? You type one, and then you type two, and then you type three, and then you go on and on and on. How many test cases that could be? That could be infinite amount of test cases, because this search box can do anything for you, right? You can search for anything. So think about how many things can you search. It's just gonna be like maybe 5 or 6,000 string that you can search in order to validate if search box is working or not. And if you do this yourself, then how many test cases? Think about 4,000 test cases yourself. You're gonna give up at some point. You're gonna say, look, this job is not worth it. It's driving me insane. So that's when you have a test script to say, you know what, I would like to do maybe, you know, 50,000, string search within 2 minutes or 3 minutes, and you can make that happen. um, you can do like 1 million string within like 5 minutes if you want to, right? um, and 1 million search strings, think about you doing that yourself. 1 million. After 101, you're going to say, okay, I lost track. uh, or even if you use the right tool and say, okay, you know what, I'll go ahead and use this tool for it and track what string that I'm searching or anything that I'm searching, then you will still have the same amount of issues where you will get lost at some point. If you're the sharpest person in the world, you'll still get lost. It's a million string, it's a million words that I'm talking about, right? So what is a string? You guys already know, anything that is in double quotation. Okay, so far so good. All right, so next thing is that I'm going to explain a little bit of basic architecture of a web page that you see normally on your browser. Because why do you need this? Is because you need to be able to understand what it is that is happening behind, so that way when we automate, it will be easier for you to understand what's really happening. So every time you have so I'm going to open my Chrome real quick. Okay, let's bring up the Chrome. Okay, so this is a Chrome and this is a Firefox. Okay, so if I look at the options after I right click on it, so just keep that in mind. When you right click, you see inspect element. Okay, so if you see inspect element and you click on it, and you're going to start seeing code, and it doesn't make sense to you initially, or it will not make sense to you initially. So we'll explain to you what these three sections are. What can you do with these three sections? You for the purpose of testing, for example. So this is, let's say you go into Chase Bank or something, and you see this and inspect element, and now you see 1 and 2 sections here, and then the third section should be here. So we'll talk about this first, and once we finish, then we will start installing our tool, and then we'll write some automation test. And notice I'm not going deeper with test cases. This is something that you guys did yesterday, and make sure you get that basics straightened up first. Otherwise, you'll always have that struggle. All right, so let's talk about this first real quick. Anybody knows JavaScript, HTML, CSS? Anybody here? Just to make sure that some people. Okay, so there's one
Know a
person.
little bit about the HTML.
HTML. Okay, so one person with HTML. Anybody with JavaScript and a CSS or HTML? Okay.
I
All
know
right.
Java. Java. I know a little bit of JavaScript, not the whole thing, but I know Java, also
Okay.
HTML, CSS, Bootstrap.
Okay, so that's good. So
Blend.
that's definitely going to be easy for you to understand. So now that majority of the people here do not have understanding, or at least they didn't know prior to this class, I'm going to go a little bit more slow to make sure that people actually can catch, right? So you're going to find in your career, in a QA career, is that they're going to say, can you automate a application that was built with .NET is a technology, right? Is this a language, let's say? Or can you automate a application that was built with Java? Or can you automate an application that was built with Python and so and so? So they're gonna like ask you for all different type of languages that are out there, and all of these languages can write some sort of application, right? Now, what is the answer to that, right? And why will be the answer is going to be saying always going to be yes. Any language they write in, your answer is yes, I can automate. And I'll tell you why. The reason you will be able to automate is because no matter what languages they use, at the end of the day, the browser presents you with three things, right? The way it looks, right? The browser presents you with your CSS, HTML, and JavaScript that you can actually go into the console and see, right? So now you got your CSS is for styling. Anything that you see here, anything. So let me go to an actual website, which is this. So for example, I can change a CSS to this if I need to. This is a header, and let me see. Okay, header is white. Let's do red, right? Let's, didn't change. Hold on a second. Oh, I think I need to add background to it. Okay. Background color. Okay, let's go ahead and add this. Oh, oh, there you go. All right, nice. See how this is taking place right here? I can change the way that I want is because CSS, like CSS is always going to be look like this. Okay. You're going to see a tag. This is actually, sorry, this is an ID or this is a selector. We call them selector, right? So this is a selector, and that selector defines what areas, okay, what area should be what color, or what spacing, what is the style, what is the font text, the text should be, the size of it, and all that, right? So where is this selector coming from? The selector is actually coming from the HTML portion. As you can see, the HTML has some sort of class, and it has a string within the class. That's actually the name of the class that you can also use. So the way the CSS is presented, um, and using this tag, HTML tag, and its value to target a specific element. So anything on a web page is an element, right? Even this is an element, or that is an element, or this is an element, right? So anything in a web page is an element, and they can be targeted by CSS selector, which is happening right here, and change the way they look, right? And so developers, when they write their front end application, they have they can style it the way they want based on the HTML. So HTML is responsible for structure, how you know um, how the things are displaying, where they displaying, right? So as you can see, header belongs to header right here, and there is a footer right here. I'm sure somewhere down here. So this is a footer, and these information is displaying exactly where they should be based on the HTML hierarchy. As you can see, each one is a tag, by the way. So we call them tags. So head is a tag. When you open head, you can see more information for that tag. So head tag contains metadata and links or anything that has styling to it. Okay, so some styling comes directly from other websites. For example, they have their own hosted style sheet right here. Maybe somewhere the style is coming from that site right here. They also use images also coming from different location, right? So again, if you guys are confused, let me know. But HTML is for structure, where things are, okay? And it depends on the hierarchy. As you can see, if I open one, it's really showing what's in it, right? So think about, this is a bucket. This head is a bucket, and head contains a lot more smaller pieces. Same thing, div is a bucket. When you open up the body, everything contains within the body. Look, if I select body, it selects everything, right? Now, if I open up body, then it contains everything else. I can click on this, and this is actually this part of the application. And so HTML is responsible to show where things are and where they should be belonging. And then CSS is to make it look colorful, style, and also how the information is being displayed to you. Okay. Now, now that you guys understand a little bit of HTML and a little bit of CSS, no matter what language a company uses or somebody uses to build the application, the browser always will interpret that, or the browser will always translate that into these three languages, right? JavaScript, HTML, and CSS. JavaScript, we will talk about that later, but for now, for the time being, this will probably give you more understanding. So no matter which language they use, at the end of the day, you are going to see this and that. Okay, you're not going to see anything different. Okay. All right. With that said, yes, that is true. You can automate anything and everything, as long as it is a web browser, right? As long as it uses a browser, right? It's not like an app or something. Okay, so now let's go into our Firefox and start installing the tool. The first thing first about the tool, right? So we're talking about Selenium. What is Selenium? Selenium is a tool that pretty much controls a browser, right? So think about this way. If Selenium can control the browser and say, tell it to what to do, we can actually use it to automate our tests. It has no relation between the application that is being built by my company, right? So let's say I work for Chase Bank and they are asking me to test this site, right? No matter what languages they're using or whatever they use, it has no relation. The source code for this application actually has no relation to the source code that I will write for automation testing. There's a good thing, and there is a good reason why we do that, right? Number one good reason is that when we automate, we want to mimic a user. We want to mimic actual human, not just go behind the code and try to do something ourselves, right? So when you go behind and you write some test, that is called unit test. That test is already handled by developers. You don't have to do that, right? So that test is basically you look at the code and you then test the code, right? So a unit test is basically when you test the code to see if the code is doing the right thing. We're not here to test the code, right? Remember, you are a QA, quality assurance engineer. We do not just come here and just do the code testing, right? Otherwise, developers would be able to do that happily, and why would they need you, right? So just know your place. Um, we're not here for any sort of code test. We're here to mimic the actual user. We want to mimic the actual user, and we want to click here, and we want to see what happens if I click here. Okay, I want to wait after clicking, and then I want to see if I can see this information or not, right? That's how we want to do our automation. Selenium WebDriver, the mechanism, the way it works, it's basically everything that Selenium has to offer in terms of method, in terms of the tools, is all to mimic the end user. It doesn't do anything from behind. There are a few exceptions if you want to do it from behind, but again, it is to mimic the actual user. Now, the second reason why we mimic the actual user is because if you don't mimic the actual user, what that will do is that your software is going to go live, and yes, it's functional based on the code point of view, but it's never going to work for the end user. End user clicking on it, it doesn't work because obviously you didn't even click on this button. You only went behind and see what's the link for that button. You went just visited that button and then did whatever validation you need to validate, and you only tested the code. You didn't tested the UI. You didn't tested what the actual user was going to see. So that test has no value for end-to-end testing or for any sort of regression testing. That test has a value for developers, right? Because they create unit tests, and that is to tell them quickly in 15 minutes that if they broke anything in terms of code, but that has no real value for regression test or smoke test or even system test or even functional test, right? So just keep that in mind, but that test also have value to us, because if they do the unit test, then we know that the application is somewhat stable. They didn't just ship something that is going to break, after doing some initial testing, after doing some basic testing. So if you do some basic testing and you find significant amount of issue, that is waste of your time, right? Because you are there to find something that is not, it's basically not easy to discover, right? And that means developer didn't do their job correctly. They didn't write unit tests. So remember, different type of testing. Unit test is something that tests the code, and we don't want to test the code. We want to mimic the end user, and that's the goal. Okay. With Selenium, now that we talked about Selenium, Selenium is again manipulates the browser. That's it. Selenium tells the browser what to do. So it can say, okay, go to jetblue.com, and Selenium can tell this browser that, hey, go to jetblue.com. Once you go to jetblue.com, I want you to type New York on the first, and then type, let's say, somewhere else, like, I don't know, Miami or something. Miami on the Fort Lauderdale, and then type 23, and then type maybe like 24. And
Dhruv, I have a question.
sure.
Yeah, so if we can like go through the website, like, I mean directly, I mean, why do we need Selenium to mimic the user if we can, mimic the user by or through the website directly?
Yep. Valid question. And again, like, thank you for bringing it up, because I did explain that in the beginning, but it's good to clarify again. Um, Remember, you have 2 weeks of sprint, right? And you have, let's say, 3,000 test cases so far accumulated by all the sprint that you had before. And every 2 weeks, you're doing the same type of testing, meaning you have application that doesn't change the functionality, but it does change styling. It does change few things here and there. But this function is essential. You want to test this all the time, right? So imagine you are working on a sprint and they're saying, okay, go ahead and initiate your regression test and let us know if you're good to release. Let us know when can we release, right? And you're going in there and you're saying, okay, fine, I'm going to test this. The first test case scenario is New York, and then Fort Lauderdale, and then dates. The second one is I'm going to try date negative testing, right? I'm going to put date in the past and see if that works. The third one, again, negative testing. I'm going to return date. I'm going to also put it in the past. Fourth one, I'm going to basically put nothing in it, null value, and it's still a negative testing, and same thing. So if you really think about it, there's going to be a lot of testing, because each and every single field, if you combine and make that different sort of combination of um, fields value, like for example, round trip or one way or adult 1 or 2, it will definitely have like 100 plus test scenarios, right? Anybody disagree? Or so everybody's agreeing, right? So now 100 test scenario, I'll tell you right now, can you go and test for me 100 test scenario? Like, and I'm going to ask you every Monday to do this for me.
That's gonna be too much work.
It's not about too much work. You're gonna like start making human errors, meaning
Uh-huh.
you one Monday you test it and it worked. The next Monday you're gonna say, okay, you know what? These 5 or 6, they work all the time. I'm gonna skip those.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
and we're human nature, right? So what that does, and not only that, it's like no brainer. Like you are a QA engineer and you are doing things the old fashioned way, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like why can't you just automate and run the same scenario in like 2 minutes, and then just provide the test scenario to your manager and say, look, whenever you need to run something, just click this button and that's it. um, Versus you bringing this work on your head and you're basically accumulating test cases 100 after 100 after 100, because every sprint you're adding more test cases and you want to do them, you want to execute them yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Make any sense, like where I'm going with this?
No, definitely. I mean,
Right. And not only that, like where is the data? Like if you are the human and you're doing the testing, and then you can come back and say, well, look, everything looks good and happy, I didn't find anything. And then I go, okay, fine, I'm gonna go and release. And after releasing, there is an issue. What just happened here is just that maybe you felt like everything's fine, right? So automation do not have feelings. Automation do not have issues at night, right? Like for example, you had a bad night just because maybe, like, I don't know, you went out, you had friends came over, whatever, you drank. And now in the morning, you have to do this regression. You have a headache and you're just sitting and you're like, oh, why do I have to do this shit, you know? And you're doing it and you're doing it and you're like, okay, you know what? I'm going to skip 50 test cases now.
So,
Okay.
so Julbhai, automation is a company's choice. I mean, like if some test cases can be written in manual, like the companies prefer or the project
No, no, no.
managers.
You decide. You are the Q engineer. Okay.
Okay,
You are the Q engineer. You decide what needs to be automated and what needs to be manually tested. So
okay,
let's okay. So we'll get to that what needs to be automated and manually tested. But let's try to keep up with today's agenda because I want people to start uh,
sure.
learning about something like Selenium. All right. So what is Selenium? Selenium that manipulates browser and tells browser what to do. There are four part of Selenium. Number one is Selenium IDE, and there are many automation tools that are out there. I'm gonna probably teach you guys two. Aside from Selenium, I'll teach you another one called Cypress. This is a brand new tool that just came up in the market, and companies are going crazy about it. So good to have it because you'll probably land in a job, and it's easier than even Selenium. So the first one is Selenium IDE. It's a Firefox extension, right? So that means it doesn't work beyond Firefox, okay, Selenium IDE, and it only works with Firefox and you cannot test it on Chrome, right? And Selenium IDE is an out-of-box tool. That tool basically does not require for you to write some code. So just to get started with, we're going to use Selenium today to make sure that you get the grip of doing some automated tests. Next class on I would expect at least 5 or 6 test cases to be automated by you guys. Okay. So again, this is being recorded, so you guys can use this to write your automated tests. Then we have Selenium RC, number 3, Selenium Grid, number 4, Selenium WebDriver. Okay, so we're going to learn this today, and I'm going to explain this briefly, and then we're going to go dive into Selenium IDE. Selenium RC was the prior version of Selenium WebDriver. When Selenium IDE first came out, developers thought, oh, this was very helpful to automate. But then Selenium IDE is just a browser extension, so it has a lot of limitations. So developer thought, you know what, we'll take this tool and take it out and make it not dependent on the Firefox. So they created RC. RC run via a remote server. What happens is that the instruction that you write for browser to follow, it goes through a server and then translates so that way the browser can understand and do what you're asking to do. So it does take a little bit of time. Now, Selenium WebDriver is the newest version, and they no longer maintain they maintain the older version of it, but they no longer have newer version of Selenium RCs because Selenium WebDriver replaced it. Selenium WebDriver is actually the better one. What doesn't use actually the server, but it directly communicates with the browser. It just talks to the browser one-on-one, and it can tell the browser what to do. So it is faster than RC, but if you know RC, then Selenium WebDriver is no problem because the remote server, the way it interacts, it's happening behind the scene, right? So you're not even affected by how it works, okay? So if you know Selenium WebDriver, then you actually know Selenium RC too, okay? Selenium Grid is just a companion for RC and WebDriver. This person is a friend of WebDriver and RCs because Selenium Grid allows you to run your tests, your WebDriver tests or RC tests in parallel, meaning you have 1,000 tests that takes, let's say, 1,000 minutes, right? And now Selenium Grid can run them into 10 different server, or let's say, okay, let's make it easy for you guys to easy math, right? 1,000 is a bigger number. 1,000 test cases, test script, right? 1,000 test script takes 1,000 minutes, and Selenium Grid says, you know what, I'm going to go ahead and divide this test into 10. and run all at the same time in 10 different machine, 10 different, you know, computer, right? So what happens is that the whole 100 test cases will finish in 10 minutes now, right? You just cut down 90% of the time that it would take to execute. Now think about 1,000 test cases or 4,000 or 5,000. Generally 3,000 is a very good number of test cases that a company typically have, okay? So now 3,000 test cases, then it will take only 30 minutes. Oh wait, no, not 30 minutes, maybe 3 hours or plus. You do the math, right? But you got 100 test case script that typically take 100 minutes, and now you cut it down to 10 minutes. Now it doesn't limit to 10 machines or 10 servers or 10 different computers. It can be 20, right? Now if you run it on 20, and that means your company has money, they want to buy you 10 20 different machines, that will be cloud machines, right? You don't see physically. Now you have 20 machines to run this test. It will take 5 minutes to, sorry, 5 minutes to finish your test cases. So Selenium Grid is just a helper. We're going to go a bit more deeper, but today's focus is to Selenium IDE. All right. As we said, Selenium IDE is a Firefox extension. So we already have Firefox ready and go to start installing this Selenium IDE, and we will then write some test cases. So what I want people to do in the meantime, think about a test case that you would like to automate, and we'll automate that as part of this class. We'll automate one test cases per person here until everybody's comfortable, and then we will move forward with the, I guess we'll finish the class for today, and I want people to write minimum 5 test cases by next class. Automate, right? Because then again, it doesn't require for you to write any sort of code. So even if you're closing your eyes right now, you'd still be able to automate later on. All right, so first thing first, how do you get Selenium IDE on your browser? This is not Firefox, right? Okay, there you go. Firefox is right here. Okay, this is Firefox, okay. So how do I get Selenium IDE? First thing first, generally, if you go to Google, oh, go already, damn. Okay, if you go to Google and you write Selenium IDE for Firefox, right? And they do, I guess they do have it for Chrome, but it's not probably approved by Selenium team. It's somebody probably took it and put it over there. So now Selenium IDE by Selenium. Okay, so if you see that, that means it should be compatible with this browser that you're working on. So go ahead only with Firefox, get it now. Oh, look, download Firefox. That means I'm in Chrome right now. Okay, I gotta find my Firefox somewhere. Okay, I'm gonna quit this. Okay, now let me just go back and bring my Firefox back. All right, there we go. Not now. So let me go to Google first and write Selenium. Guys, in the meantime, anybody confused, please ask, okay? All right, so Selenium IDE for Firefox, you can't miss this box right here. So just click on it and add to Firefox. This is the first thing you do. Once you add, you have to click on add again. That will add it to your, okay, got it. And it should edit somewhere here with the plugin. We'll have to bring the plugin right here somewhere, but it edited, right? So now if I refresh, it's gonna say, okay, you know what, remove, but I don't want to remove. Edited already, just to give you guys what it looks like, what you guys should see, something like this. Hold on. So something like this, but this is the old version. They didn't even change the picture of it. So I'm going to show you how the new version looks like. So extension, I got to go into the add-ons, and I have my Selenium somewhere, extension right here. Selenium, okay, Selenium, and I'm going to say manage. Okay, default automatic update, run private mode, okay. I'm trying to bring it right here. Yeah, this is not a testing thing. This is just a Firefox thing. I want to make sure that I can bring it here so I can click on it. Permission. That was the add-on that we edited. Let's see. Selenium IDE, okay, recent. Let me remove this thing, proxy and proxy. Remove extension, because I would like to see how to bring that here. Okay, so if anybody knows how to put extension on this area of the Firefox, I'm not a Firefox user, so it's harder for me to preference. Extension. And that's exactly what you are going to face when you write your automated test. So just give me a second while I figure this thing out. Permission, okay, that's fine. Detail, what? Yes, I added that. Okay, let me just do a quick Google. Okay, so if you do add extension to toolbar on Firefox, it shows us this, right? So let's just go with it together, okay? And that's how you solve problems at work too. So right click on toolbar and select customize, open menu, and then blah, blah, blah. Okay, right click and then customize. Wow, this was like fairly easier. Okay, so now we have to find our add-ons. Selenium ID is right here. Okay, that's fine.
You got to drag it to the toolbar.
Oh, perfect. Okay, good. Thank you. All right, so that's done, right? Okay, cool. Okay, so guys, it was a good learning for me and for you guys, right? So we added that to our toolbar, right? Now, Selenium IDE, think about this way, right? It's a lightweight tool. It's a very light tool. So if you join a company and they don't have any sort of automation, you can get started with Selenium IDE. If you're writing something and you're doing it over and over again, you can do with Selenium IDE. So let's see what we want to automate first. Anybody has any preference with a website that you want to test?
Yeah, JetBlue is good, I think.
JetBlue, probably not as suitable. Let's do something easy like Google, right? And then we'll go to JetBlue after that. Just want to make sure that people get it before we get into complexity. So once we click on it, right, you see welcome to Selenium IDE version 3.17. I can say things that I can do right here, right? The first thing you see is that record a new test in a new project. So that means you have to actually create a project. Within the project, you have to write a test, or you can write a text. Or if you have an existing project, meaning you already is using Selenium WebDriver, and now you would like to add it to your existing project. And similarly, you can create a new project directly or even close the IDE. So for our case is the first one. Project name is, let's say I'll give it a demo. And then we need to put base URL. What is base URL? Again, you can see the placeholder underneath of this text field. This is called placeholder. And the placeholder showing this is how the base URLs look like. So I'm going to go ahead and copy this. Okay, put it to the side. Okay. Copy and paste it, right? So I pasted it and I'm going to start recording. Okay. So when I click on recording, it opened up that a specific website and it has a banner showing that, yes, Selenium is recording. What does that mean? Selenium is actually recording right now, or it's in a recording mode. Yes, you can turn off the recording by clicking it here. Okay, if you don't want to do anything, you can turn it off. But at this moment, anywhere you click, anything you do as an action will be recorded right here. Okay, recorded mean in code. Okay. So now if I click on here, right, and let's see if it recorded anything, and not yet, right? Click on here. Oh, there you go. So the first click, boom, it did some recording right there. Now, if I click, let's say I want to find, I don't know, something like, let's say MacBook Pro. and right, that's it. But what's interesting here is that once you finish with MacBook Pro, you can now assert it. You can say, look, I need to see this thing as first, because they are the company who actually sells MacBook Pro. So if that shows up on the first spot, then it should be good. So what you can do, you can right click. Once you right click, you see Selenium IDE again. And now you're going to do assertion. What is assertion? Assertion is verifying, right? You are basically checking for something. So in this case, you're going to say, look, I want to assert. By the way, a test case is never complete unless you put assertion. Okay, meaning you are comparing something, right? You want to say, okay, you know what, it should have this or that. So if you don't have that, that means it's not a test case. So in this case, I'm going to assert, because we're checking for text, I'm going to say, looking for text, but this is not text, right? So we want to say text, and boom, I have created a checkpoint to see that it has the right text. Okay. I'm going to stop recording for now, and I'm going to give it a name. I'm going to say Google search. Google. My test case name is Google search MacBook, right? So because we're using MacBook Pro. Okay, click OK, done. All right, so then we have our first test cases, and this is for a demo project. Okay, so I'm gonna, is it recording? No, it's not recording. Good. Okay. So let me go on and explain what happened here, right? And everything that we did, it actually got recorded. There are some steps that got created here that we don't actually need, so we're gonna probably go ahead and get rid of. The first thing first is that if you look at here, and you can see commands, and you can see target, and you can see value. Now, keep in mind, this tool, I'm not teaching you for a reason where you're going to go to work and use this tool, because normally they don't want you to use something like that. They want you to write some code. It's because it's more efficient. But this is going to let you to understand how test automation works better. Okay. This is like pretty much a playground at this point for you to understand how automation works, because all the automation tools that are out there does the same thing to automate. They need to have a command, they need to have a target, and they need to have a value. So sometimes the value could be an action, or sometimes the value could be what you're doing to it, to whatever items that or elements that you're dealing with. Okay. If you then run it, let me just run it real quick before I go with further explanation how automation is doing here. So if I click right here and I can say, okay, I can basically, okay, there you go. You have run all tests. So if you have, let's say 20 or 50 or 100 test cases here, then you can just run all. Or if you have just one test case, then you can just run that. So I have one for now. I'll go ahead and run it. And as you can see, boom. Anything interesting? Any thoughts? It happened too quickly, right? So let me just make sure it happens a little bit slower so you guys can see it. Let's go ahead and run it. Okay. Preparing test cases. I'm not doing anything, guys, so it's doing it by itself. Boom. Okay. Um. All right. So does it seem like something that you can do?
So Julabhai, it just showed just the recording, right?
So we finished recording at this moment, right?
Right.
And now there is recorded exactly what we did. We did the action, right? Meaning when we started recording, we did everything on the browser. So we came to the browser and we said, okay, I want to click here, I want to click there, I want to do this, I want to verify this, right? We did that. Once we recorded, we now have a test case with a name on it, and we can have a list of them. We can have like hundreds of them, and we can say, again, now I'm going to run this test case, and just go ahead and run it real quick, and it'll run it. It'll run it automatically every time. Do you see yourself saving a lot of time? Do you guys see any benefit right away?
Yes.
Yeah, fine.
Okay, so let's say
It is.
let's say somebody like Rocky Bai, right? He likes to post his status on Facebook every day, right? But he doesn't want to go and log in and do all that, like other things like logging. And then after that, he has to probably like maybe 4 or 5 other steps. It takes some time. Let me see, somebody's trying to join. Gotta let them in. 1 second. Okay. All right. So guys, before continue with this example, just piece of advice: if you are joining from your iPhone and you think you'll learn automation, then forget about it. Okay. Um, Trust me, everything will flow right through your head, and you're not gonna learn anything. So you have 3 months to kind of train yourself to go and work out there. So do the best you can. It's only 3 months of pain, 3 months of learning, and 3 months later you should be a better person in terms of knowledge wise, right? You know exactly what needs to be done. And one of the reason why some people take 1 year or 2 year to get the same job is because they think that, okay, you know what, I'll just do it from my phone and whatever. You want to be prepared, you want to have the right gear for yourself. You can't go to a war without a gun, right? So in this case, your gun is your own computer. So if you don't have a computer, then obviously you're not going to be successful. So moving forward, try to be from your computer, because you can do a lot more. You can probably Google something and already find some sort of answers that your question you're supposed to ask me, and then you can just then in the class say, okay, wait a minute, what about this, right? But if you're on the phone, you're going to be listening, and trust me, it's on that tiny screen, you're not going to see anything. All right. So with the example, right? So again, I'm giving somebody as an example because I know he's active, super active on Facebook. So, so let's say he's posting his status every day, and he wants to be able to do it with one click. Boom. So, can he automate this? Can he automate this today, tonight?
Let's try.
Yes, sure. I think so.
Yes, but then Facebook will ban you, right? Or like maybe like after third or fourth try, Facebook will ban you because they know you're using automation. Uh, but I'm just giving an example, right? You shouldn't do that to your Facebook because you're gonna get banned. They will ban you most likely. So but yes, you can do something like that and automate anything like daily task. Let's say you pay your bill exact amount every month. You can still automate and do it, but then this is not for a regular person to go in there and
Jobai, I have a question. Can you do it all over again? One more test? Like I
yeah,
missed it.
definitely. No, like I said, we're gonna do one for each person. This was mine. So you guys tell me what needs to be automated, and we'll do one for each person here. We got 120. We got actually 40 minutes to do all of you guys one test case each. I want you guys to be comfortable and start writing automated tests. But let me explain these things, and then we will start writing some test cases. If we have to go over by 30 minutes, we'll do that today. Um, okay. So down up here you have run all, so it will run all of it. Single will run single, and then you have a step over command, meaning if you see something is failing, you can step over to the next step. But if you want to execute slowly, then you can execute slowly or fast the way you want. It doesn't make a big difference. Slowly or fast doesn't change the outcome of the result. And some application actually do, because the application, your task is so fast that the application doesn't have time to load and it fails. So yes, this definitely comes handy when you have application that is super slow. Then when things fails, you can actually see more. You can see more details on the log, right? Log starts with opening, setting the window size to a specific size, then clicking on the navigation name queue. So what is name queue? The way the automation works is basically it takes information from here to target that element. Is this an element? Anybody disagree? This right here? Nobody disagrees? Okay, good.
Yes, that's an element too. Yeah.
Okay, so if that is an element, I'm going to inspect it and I'm going to show you guys what is the selector for that element. You will see a selector's name is equal to Q. Okay, that is a unique selector. How do I know it's a unique? Well, I will not just have you guys take my word for it. I'm going to copy that, Control C. I'm going to then test that uniqueness of the selector. So if I do something like this and it show me something like that, right? So now I'm going to go ahead and make that as a CSS selector.
Julbai, how did you open this window?
You see, this is a unique, this is one of a kind. One second, I'll explain that. So you see one of one, that means it is only one of a kind for this entire page. Okay, so if it's not unique, the selector, then Selenium IDE will not work, meaning when you write your test, it's not gonna run. Okay. How do I open this window? I'll close it first and then show you. Any browser, you right click, you should be able to see inspect element, except for Safari. For Safari, you have to enable developer tool. Okay. You have to go to your setting and enable developer tool in order for you to right click and inspect any sort of elements. This is Firefox, Chrome, same thing. Okay. Um, and we're going to be using this a lot more. For now, today, I'm just explaining what it is. And for your homework, it will not really require to write any code, but at least I'm giving you some initial understanding of automation because we're going to be writing code very soon. All right, so this test failed for some reason. I'm going to go ahead and run it. MacBook Pro, and boom. Now let's see if it passes this time. Okay, this time it passed everything, as you can see. So remember we talked about the queue. This guy right here, this has a name is equal to queue. There we go. Okay, that's how it targets an element. Okay, if I change this, if I change this to, let's say, something else like this, and then update it, right? And now I run it, what's gonna happen, do you think?
It will fail.
It will fail because this doesn't
Definitely.
exist. This doesn't exist. So there always needs to be a correlation between what the script is versus what is happening on the application. There has to be some sort of relation between what target, right, which one you're targeting, and what you're typing in it, what action you're doing. So as you can see, if you click on this, you're saying, okay, I want the type command, meaning I want to type something on it. Okay, so you're doing a type command. Then you're saying, okay, you know what, my target element would be this guy. Okay, this guy is my target element. And then I want to type MacBook Pro. But what if I don't want to type MacBook Pro anymore? I want to type something else. So I can go ahead and change. I can say, let's say Apple, right? Um, and that's it. Now, if I run it, do you think something will fail? Or let's say, you know what, forget about Apple. I'm going to say JetBlue. Okay, so what it is something is going to fail? What is something that you think is going to fail right here by looking at it?
Well,
The
there is
target.
no relation, so it will definitely fail.
Wait, so you were saying, okay, wait, so let me just make this, let me correct this to Q, back to Q, okay? Now you tell me what will fail. Give me line number, right? So we got 4 to 8. Which line is going to fail right now?
Number 8.
Line number 8, right?
Yes.
Just because
Yeah.
you're asserting for a text, you're saying I should be seeing this text. If you're searching for MacBlue, sorry, JetBlue, should you be seeing MacBook Pro? That's my question. And if you do see it, that means your application kind of is broken, or Google engineers needs to be investigating this because that shouldn't be the case. So if you are searching for JetBlue and then you're saying I should be seeing Apple, right? Obviously, it's gonna fail. So let's see it fail, and then we go ahead and okay. Okay, we like to see this failing. Okay, there we go. Somewhere it's still green. It's probably taking that few extra second to give it some time because usually what happens is um, if things are taking a little bit of time to load and it goes right away and checks for it, especially checks or assertions, they do wait for some time before complaining about like, hey, something is not working. Okay, so it did wait, and looks like the mouse overfill. We don't need these steps actually because we don't really, it has two, right? You see mouse over top, it has two. So this has been problematic for us. I'm going to delete that. And now I'm going to go ahead and run it one more time. So it failed a step that is not even relevant to what we were expecting to fail. Okay. And when you run your test and you're interfering with the browser, you're going around clicking and doing something else, then obviously it will cause more failures because you are interfering with the actions that it's trying to mimic. Okay, so there we go. So this is something that you always need to be reading. Whenever something fails, I don't want you to just jump right in. Okay, it fails as a bug. I'm gonna go ahead and um, report that as a bug. But you should be okay. What the mouse out? Delete. We don't need this. Run it one more time. Okay, there we go. So this is a proper failure. This is what I wanted to see. The other two steps, it's not necessary. So go ahead and remove it. When you see unnecessary steps, sometimes you click here and there, and that also gets recorded. So you need to remove things that is not part of your test case. So that is called pretty much trimming, or let's say that is something like you're enhancing your test script. Once you see this, right? Once you see what's happening, I want you to read, because on an automation script, you're not going to see something like this. You're not going to, it doesn't have a UI. It doesn't have any sort of interface to see. You can only see a screen that has some code, but it will definitely show you some things like that. Okay. It'll definitely show you and say, okay, you know what? It failed because the actual value found is JetBlue and did not match MacBook Pro. Okay. So it did find JetBlue. You see how smartly is telling you, right? It went there, it found JetBlue, but it should have been MacBook Pro. It's because we didn't update our assertions, right? So now if you update your assertion and say, look, I'm searching with MacBook Pro, and then I should be seeing MacBook Pro. So the best thing you can do, you can probably take this key and update that to be here, and that's it. That's all you needed to do. And let's see, blah, blah, blah. Okay, JetBlue, JetBlue. Okay, that's good. JET. Okay, J should be capital. Otherwise, it's going to cause a failure. So you see what I just did here? Enter key, enter key. Let's see. Now go ahead and run that real quick. Okay, okay, never mind.
But you need to update it there, right?
Yes, let me see. I updated right here. Okay, so this should be a text value because probably it doesn't have access to this, what key means, enter key. So I'm going to just change it to regular text, JetBlue. Okay, I thought it would work, but okay. Go ahead and save that real quick. Okay, go ahead and run it. All right, and who's gonna be the next person to give me a test case to go ahead and automate? So the reason it's not passing is because probably this is JetBlue and the text probably different. Let me see what is the text that is finding. JetBlue do not match with JetBlue. So B is capital we're providing, and it should not be. Oh, we should be probably putting a B capital, right? So it's a good mistakes to make because it's trying to match exact casing. Okay, somebody's just coming in new in the class. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and run it one more time to show you guys that it's passing, and then we move on with the remaining test cases for the day.
So it is cancelled.
Congratulations, it's pass.
Yes, there we go. So it passed, right? So what have we learned? And again, we got log to see how many time it take and what are the things that he faced in the beginning. But it's always going to be trial and error. As an automation engineer, you will always face issues. You will always see things are failing, but you will make it pass at some point. To give you guys some idea from real world, sometime I spend half a night, okay, just after work, and I'm just like, it's bothering me. I need to get this done, and I can't. What's happening? And now I'm spending time after time, and I'm trying everything that I can find out there. I do some research, I read it, and I understand what it is that I need to do, and then I execute it, and it's not working. Okay, then I try another thing, same thing. I find another suggestion and then use it, and use it. And on the way, in that 4 hours, I have just learned a lot of the things that I've tried, but it's not something that I need, right? And not necessarily bad, right? Because I just learned a whole bunch of stuff just by trying to find a solution for one thing. And then after 5 or 6 hours later, I do find something and it works. And then tomorrow morning, I just go to work and just try to, stay low key because I didn't sleep or something. Um, but at least the work is done, right? So that's how things are, the real world things that you'll see. Once you put yourself out there, you'll probably zone out for like a couple hours. You're gonna see you don't really listen to anything, or you're gonna be pretty much zoned out and code and just see why is it not working, and it's gonna bother you. If it doesn't bother you, then it's gonna be a problem, right? It should bother you if it's not working. Like, why is it not working? Let me try this, let me try that, let me try everything that I see out there. Now, if you're automating and you see some problems and you can write Selenium IDE, I'm seeing this problem, then obviously it will have some sort of suggestion on Google. You're not the first one trying this. So somebody will say, okay, I faced this issue and this is how you resolve it. So you just read and it will definitely help you. With that said, we go to our next test case, and I'm going to go ahead and write another test. But any questions on how to record a test and run them, and anything at all here? Because it's pretty simplified for you. And you see, you can actually put a breakpoint. Breakpoint is probably for breakpoint is for, and we also use breakpoint when we write automated tests with code, direct code. So breakpoint is when you want to stop, like let's say number 4, and see what's really happening before you move to number 5 and 6. Okay. And then you have yourself pause or on exception. So meaning any time something fails, you want to pause and you want to see what happens to your browser. Okay. This is for manual breaks. Like you can actually put the breakpoints and say, you know what, I want to stop right here. And then recording, start recording is basically you just click on it, it'll start recording. That's it. Then you got save project. You can open folder. You'll save these projects to your desktop or anywhere that you can save, and then you can open it through here. Or let's say you wrote this test and it's done, and you send it to your coworker, and he can now open it and then start running those test cases as well. Okay. All right, so let's go into the next test case, and JetBlue is something that we had in mind, right? So we're gonna try to do that. I'm gonna copy this, and this could be a good idea because again, JetBlue is not necessarily gonna be a easier interface to automate. As long as these things right here are easier to automate, then we should be fine. Because sometimes you'll see that if you look into the element, it doesn't. Okay, it does have an ID, but you see the number right here. This might change every time you refresh. So let me see, it does change or not.
I'm sorry, I just had a quick question.
Sure,
So
sure.
do you start recording like when you're searching for the website, or once you get onto the website and decide that you want to start running it?
Okay, that's a great question because what you want to do, you want to do your research first. You want to say, okay, I want to automate JetBlue. I want to automate the functionality. What is the test case that you want to automate first, right? You want to say, look, I'm going to choose flights. I'm going to choose round trip. I'm going to choose one adult. I'm going to choose multi-city or single city. So you have to already have what steps that you are going to perform ahead of time, because you don't want to like wander around, because anytime you click somewhere, it will record it. So you have to be very careful about where you're clicking. Is it intentional or is it unintentional?
Okay, because then you're just going to be testing stuff that you don't want to test.
Right, right.
Okay.
And not only like testing stuff you don't want to test, is that it's just that you're going to add extra steps that you will need to remove, and you'll be spending extra time to removing extra stuff that you don't even need. So I would say, if you're recording, try to not to record other steps that you don't even need for your test cases. We always try to do what we need for our test cases, because we will write more test cases for, let's say you want to check for these guys, then you will click and then you will only test that, and then you move out and then write another test case only for this and this. So when it fails, you know exactly what area of the application failed. Otherwise you click everywhere and go crazy with it. You don't know actually why it failed, where it failed, what was the test case, what was the test case number or name that failed, and how to go about finding out what is really happening. So module or smaller part of, I guess, making the test case smaller it has a good thing, which is to be able to find pinpoint where is exactly it's failing. Okay, so our test case in this case, it's New York is already by default there. round trip is by default there. Not one adult is also by default there. And so what I will do is put it on true, which another city, I'll probably choose Florida, and then depart and return, and then click on search flight, and I should be seeing some flights, and then it will be done, right? Now, problem with that is tomorrow, if you run the same test case, it will not pass because the date that I'm going to be selecting is not going to be dynamic, meaning the date is going to be for today. So, so we'll explain how we change that as well for future. All right, so go ahead and click on record, and it's already probably recording. So we don't want to do that. I'm going to just write a new, I want to like, okay, test, okay, cancel, okay, stop recording, okay, stop recording. And I want to write a new test. Click right here. Okay, which fine. JetBlue, and then test case name always should be relevant to what you're testing. So in this case, I'm testing for location, right? Testing for flights, JetBlue flights test, like for example, right? And it's not as relevant. Its flight could be anything, right? But just for the timing, for learning, we're just gonna do that like this. So I added my test case, and then I will go ahead and start recording. And you notice how it took me to another domain, and it's
So you can see
already
the URL, right?
right. So it already started recording. So I have to kind of change that URL somewhere. So I hope it. Okay, let me just remove these things first. Delete. Delete. Okay. Okay, so notice like for each project, you're going to have base URL. Base URL is basically saying that this URL will never change. So in a company, the base URL always going to be something that you put it right here, right? So I'm going to, in this case, if I change it and I run it here, then it will probably fail, but I'll go ahead and put JetBlue here. And then we'll figure it out when the other test fails. Okay, so this is our base URL, and I'm going to start recording. JetBlue, and I'll be careful about where I'm typing. As you can see, the Selenium IDE is recording, so I'm gonna go ahead and click on this first. Goodness, okay. Okay, so it did take a script extension causing Firefox to slow down. Temporarily disable extension page. No, wait. So for some reason, okay, Selenium IDE is slowing down the JetBlue web page only for us, okay, only not for anybody out there in the world. But let's see. And that's why you shouldn't probably there are restrictions, right? Because this application is actually out there for public, and so, JetBlue has put probably some sort of mechanism to say, okay, you know what, anybody using an automation tool, just not allow them. So this is what's happening. Like I can even
Mine is
type.
working though.
Are yours working?
Yeah.
Okay, something's happening on my side. Let me see. I'm trying to. It says temporary disabled. No, no, wait, I want to wait for it. It's recording. Okay. It could be also related to the base URL issue. Okay. Let me see. Let me close that real quick. And as you can see, I close my window. Stop recording. Okay. Delete. Delete. Okay. Okay. See, like that's where the problem is. When you change the domain, that's when things are things like that will happen. So I'm going to try to create a new project and do JetBlue is a new project. So okay, so I'll leave that to the side. File, new tab. Oh, yeah. Okay, and I have to start over with this thing. Okay, so let me save this real quick and then just have a new project for that JetBlue. Okay, demo, save. Okay. Now I'm gonna go ahead and get out of that and click on my JetBlue again. All right. Okay, so now new, and then I'm just gonna do new project, right? So because one thing you have to understand is that if you work for Chase, your domain is gonna remain as chase.com, right? So Selenium IDE is not trying to support multiple URLs because you're not going to be testing 20 different applications. You're testing one, and that should have its own project. So it definitely makes sense. So I'm going to go ahead and click. I'm going to say JetBlue for this time. And again, the last time I used this application or the IDE is different than right now because they made numbers of improvements. Probably by the time that I have not had chance to use it. Let me go into JetBlue website real quick. Oh, goodness, cheap flights. And that's why I hate Yahoo, because you see, like I'm asking for JetBlue and they're giving me cheap flights. So always use Google at work because it's gonna save you some time. All right, so this is our base URL. Start recording. Boom. Let's see. It shouldn't have any problem right now because last time the problem was that base URL has changed and Selenium IDE did something that really made that happen. So let me just go to Florida and I'm gonna say I want, I don't know, Jacksonville. And then I want to depart on the 22nd Monday, and I want to come back on the 28th. And let's see. Oh, what? But you guys, I mean, if anybody is trying this website and you have the same issue, I know for a fact JetBlue is doing this. They don't want people.
But you are in the, it is a Firefox, are you sure?
Yeah, of course, it's the Firefox because, like you see, the what they're saying is that Selenium IDE is causing Firefox to slow down. So maybe my version of Firefox is not up to date. But what I'm going to do, I'm going to switch gear. Instead of JetBlue, I'm going to go to Cheapo Air. Okay. Probably it's JetBlue itself because you try to do this with Facebook and trust me, you're gonna get a huge warning on your screen saying don't do it. Okay, so I'm gonna remove all this. You know what? I'm gonna just go ahead and exit out and create a new one. Leave this page. I don't have to like manually remove one at a time, which is kind of time consuming. Okay, so just do a new project, Cheapo Air, URL, Cheapo Air, start recording, boom. All right, so hopefully this time, they're not a big enough company to actually think about doing this, so we should be good. All right, so we're going to Florida, Fort Lauderdale, and we need to choose a date, 22nd, and then we want to come back on the 25th. So it's done. One traveler is fine. I'll just click on search. All right, so the next thing I want to validate if I landed on this page. So as long as I am here, you have to make a determination as a QA engineer that what can you call it as a success? What is expected here? Okay, if you see this guy right here, because remember the number will change every time you run your test case. Like it could be 125 the next second, next minute because they want to give more discount. Something will change, right? So even the Spirit Airlines could change to United Airlines, right? So we don't know that. So what can we assert here? So Selenium and assert, and I can say presence, right? And if I do presence, that means if this area is presence or not. If this area is here is presence, then we're good to go. I'm going to stop my test right now and stop recording and give it a name. I'm going to say search. Okay, search. Do camel casing, right? Camel casing means is that after the first word, every other word will have uppercase, okay? Flight in Okay, so that's that. Um, let's run it. I have a suspicion that it'll fail because the way, as you can see how it looks, see how it's weird. ID is T with the O in it. So let's see. I mean, we never know. Go ahead and run it. And when it fails, what do we do, right? That's the question. As you can see, it's probably going to fail because it doesn't know how to deal with this too, right? And that's where the complexity starts for automation guys, right? We need to know how to click on them. And oh, now that I clicked on it, it's just selected probably. So I don't know if it ran already. Okay. So as you can see, it's still running before it's throwing an exception. What is an exception in automation or any sort of programming language? Exception is basically when you see an error, just like this, anything that is not expected. Um, so now it waited 3,000 milliseconds, right? That means 30 seconds, okay? Um, and it didn't find what it was looking for, okay? Or something happened. What could be the cause of this problem? The cause is basically, we're clicking on focus right here. Do we need to click on focus? I believe we do because this will only work when you click on focus. But this is a text field, so if we can type Fort Lauderdale, we don't need to put focus. So let's see. Maybe we'll remove that. The next one is typing, or let's see, click, click. So we got another click. Search now. Okay, so this is way beyond. So I'm gonna go ahead and remove this step because this might be an unnecessary step for us. So I'm gonna run it again. And this is a trial and error again to find out which step we need, which step we don't need. Um, let's see. And again, this is a website where automation tools such as Selenium IDE do not work. So limitation, guys. Let's talk about limitation since we hit a point where we can use this as an example. Okay. Um, the example of that is that with the modern technology, the way they build the front end, meaning think about this way. As far as the element goes, this element is okay. This element is a text field and is a drop down at the same time. Okay, when you click on it, it does show you stuff. So you got an element that is hybrid, which which um, which has drop down and it has a text field. Does this make sense to you guys? This is the newer technology. Like this is probably Angular JS or React JS that they use to make this.
This
But
data collect from the database, I think, right? DB, the website database,
yeah, but
the field.
that has no relation to like what I'm trying to explain. Because okay, so let's think through again. Why we are having a test case that is failing is because it doesn't know where things are. Like it can find calendar, it cannot find it, right? What I'm trying to tell you guys is that these elements are dynamic elements, right? Meaning these elements changes their ID when you refresh the browser, right? So the first time when we record, the browser recorded this, and now the second time when you're running it, it changed the description of your CSS or selector, and it doesn't know what to do after that, right? Why this is happening? This is happening is because we have dynamic elements that changes their property, and this is happening is because the modern technology, the newest technology for the front end web development, somebody who's building this web and making it look as good as this, they had to use modern technology. And now with that, we are the one who's suffering as a QA engineer who's trying to automate. Now let's say we have Selenium IDE, then obviously this website is not going to be something that you want to automate with Selenium IDE. In this case, you want to use something else. You want to use Selenium WebDriver, which gives you flexibility, right? Which gives you flexibility on doing things. Now, if in this case, let's say if I want to click, I can probably fix this test if I want to. So it says screen, I just have to know where it's trying to click. So this is for single, okay, so it's trying to click on this thing, right, to select. So what I'm going to do, I'm going
You
to
have to
probably,
manually click on it. The click event doesn't work, I think.
Yeah, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to probably find a selector. So CPL 0 is the ID. Let's see. Um, I can probably change that to say, okay, target is um, scale 0, right? And I have to say CSS is equal to that. And cal0 is an ID, so I have to put a hashtag in front, okay? As you can see, like many other CSS just showed up for me. And, oh, didn't it just update that for me? A second. Okay, let me see if it takes me there. Exactly. Where is this? Um, close calendar. Okay, this is for close calendar. Opening calendar, we have to click on this. Run. Okay. So this is getting way too much complicated, but we can definitely, like if you spend your time, you can definitely make it work, but you have to manually go in there and say, okay, you know what? What is the selector for this? This is a cal0. I'm going to go ahead and update this to use cal0, right? And that's the way we're going to trim and everything. But for today, I don't want to give you guys too much work to automate. So if you face a application that is just like this, we don't want to automate that application. So let's see if we can find a better one. So if you find something like this student calculator, student loan calculator, start with something basic, right? Because imagine like on your first day, you're trying to figure out how to fix your test script after recording, right? That's going to take some time. So, okay, again, this Yahoo. Ooh, okay, let's go right there. Let's see which one I like. Bank rate. We usually automate bank rate sometimes. Okay. So you got yourself bank rate calculator for college planning, right? So this is your base URL. I'll go ahead and copy that. In the meantime, I'll go ahead and leave this page. So anything with calculator, you can say mortgage calculator, you can say car loan calculator. So try to do that. It will have more stability than doing something like JetBlue. Um, does this mean that they did not automate their testing like JetBlue? Is that a question you guys have in your mind? Like, how did the JetBlue people do their testing? Guys, this is a lending website. Lending website, they don't have to automate. Lending meaning this never changes. Like this website is just a lending website. So lending website, more 90% of the time do not have automation. But if it does, then they use Selenium WebDriver, such tool, something that is more dynamic to be able to automate this site. Okay, so same thing for Facebook. Facebook do have mechanism to say, okay, you know what, I am an authorized tester and I should be testing. And their selectors, they have internal selectors for their environments that you cannot see and I cannot see. So if you try to use a selector, meaning the identification of this element, then then Facebook will know and they will then say, okay, you know what, do it again, I will ban you. Okay, let's see. All right, so let's open up again, give it a name. This time we're doing student loan. This is my project. This is my base URL, start recording. Okay, so the first one, I want to put information such as, let's say I want to get 40,000. And then 40,000, okay. Loan term, I don't want to get for 5 years. I want to get it for 10 years, okay. And then if I do,
I have a question.
Sure, sure.
So are we gonna be using like the Selenium IDE on Firefox from now on, or are we still gonna be using IntelliJ?
Okay, so Selenium IDE, this is a separate thing, right? It has nothing to do with what IntelliJ is. Selenium IDE is supposed to give you initial understanding on how the automation works. This is something that we're not going to spend a lot of time. I'm going to give you guys homework as long as you guys finish the homework. And okay, and then the procedure of submitting the homework will be a little bit different, okay, that I'm going to make you guys do. What I want people to do once you finish your homework and write some test cases, I want you to take a screen video. You can do it with your phone and then post it in our channel because I want others to see that you did your homework, and I will be able to see the video running it, right? That is just to put it out there so that way some people that finishes, at least they will motivate the rest of it to go ahead and post their homework directly to the channel. And this is only we do it one time or two times, but then when we start with our actual test automation tool, we will probably post here and there videos where you get stuck and you don't know what to do. Maybe somebody else do know what to do, and then they can answer those.
So Julbhai, for recording, we need to use any kind of app or anything? Or it's just like,
So I would say find a simple one. Don't go and say, okay, I have to automate this JetBlue because JetBlue is complex, right? Don't find a complex application. I'm not looking to see that if you are going to go in a complex application and automate, because if you cannot automate through Selenium IDE, that means you're gonna go ahead and use WebDriver. So at work, if you do find a situation that we just found with JetBlue, you're gonna tell your manager, say, look, IDE is not suitable for this project. So we're gonna have to use Selenium WebDriver. And when we learn Selenium WebDriver, you'll see the difference between them. But for now, if you just write these test cases, it'll give you the sense of how automation works to begin with, right? All right. With that said, we entered 40, and then we entered 10 for long term, and then we got 6%. I'll click on calculate, and I should be seeing this number. So I'm going to go ahead and assert this. I'm going to go ahead and highlight it, and I'm going to go ahead and select Selenium. I'm going to say assert, and I'm going to look for value or text. I guess in this case, I'll say text, whatever. Still a text though, right? All right, so now that is done, I'm gonna go ahead and give it a name, calculate loan. Okay, so click OK and done. So as you can see, we are checking for this specific amount after entering information that we have, right? So initially we enter some values, and once we enter that values, we're expecting this calculated number. So that is essentially giving you guys the expected value, right? So if you enter 40,000 and you have loan year for 10 years with the 6% per year, then it should definitely give you this exact amount after the calculation. You can do further validation. You can probably add this and say, okay, look, I'm looking to see.
Rupa, I have a question.
Mhm.
Yeah, so right now, while we are testing with Selenium IDE, it's like the website is already been designed and it's working. So what we're doing is we're recording on Selenium, and then Selenium is testing. Selenium is doing it for us. So when there's a website in development process and we're in agile, let's say in agile uh, environment,
Mhm.
when we're doing the test, that at that time the website is not designed, so we don't know what the outcome would be, like this value, this 444.
Mhm.
We don't know if we will get it or if we'll be able to
Where it
record
goes,
it.
right? Okay, so when can you do automation? That's the question that I see here, right? The thing is that when you don't have the application up and running, they will have that running somewhere in a server. The the URL will be like kind of funny looking URL. It will be like QA1 at bankrate.com, QA2 at banker.com, whatever. So what you need to do, you need to ask your developers and say, hey, you finished with this. Can you tell me where that is deployed to? Deployed meaning where you pushing your code, which server are you pushing your code to? So he will say, okay, yeah, well, I'm pushing on QA1. QA1 is basically just say, okay, QA1.bankrate.com. So you already know the URL for QA1. Then you will use that URL to do your testing. Okay.
Okay, so that way we'll be able to record the
Exactly.
expected result.
Yeah, but even if you are doing manual testing, how do you do the testing without actually have the application up and running in a server, right?
No, there's no way. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's true for automation and manual both.
Mm-hmm.
You got to bring that up on your stand-up meeting. You know how you guys did a stand-up this morning. You're just gonna say, hey, so I started working on these test cases, and now I need to test it. I don't have the URL where the branches or the code is deployed to. And then they will say, okay, reach out to this developer or whatever, and he will tell you. So let me go ahead and
Okay.
run this real quick. And as you can see,
Thank you, Julbhai.
No problem. And as you can see, it passed, right? And it was rather quick because we probably have that into the fast mode. So slow it down a little bit to give you guys some idea here. And look, it's already 202. So I probably cannot automate for one test case for each of you guys, but um, what I can do of good use of my time, not really do this test case over and over again. Probably you guys got the picture on how to write automated test. Um, so first you have to write the test cases, you know exactly what you need to do, and then you use this tool to automate. Any question now, you know what, I'm gonna spend the next 20 minutes on with questions, because that way if any of you guys get stuck with this tool, this information will help at the end. So any question how to write this automated test? Any question at all that you didn't understand during this process?
Can you show me the assert part? After you put everything in a right click assert,
Sure,
please.
sure.
Thank you.
So when you do assert, right? Okay, so when I click on recording and this is on focus, that means this is being recorded. And when I click on assert, right, you have multiple assertions that you can make. The first one is mouse over, is just to make sure that you know how you just move your mouse on top of it and that's it, done, right? But then we have assert. Assert is to see different things like checked. Checked is for what? What can you see if it's checked or not? Checked with ed, past tense. If that element is checked, what can you look for check, right? What is the element? What type of element is actually checked? Is the checkbox, correct? Okay, so if it's a checkbox, then checked with the past tense, that means you're looking to see if it's true or false. If that checkbox is already checked, okay, then you have your editable, right? Editable is basically what is editable on the web page. If you look at the text field is editable. Even the checkbox is editable if you can click and unclick. So you are basically asserting to see if this text field can take values or if it's at least editable, right? Next is not checked. That is for negative, right? So you want to see that something that you're not expecting to be checked, it should not be checked, okay? Same thing, not editable, not present. So opposite of everything, right? Present is basically you want to say, look, I want to see the whole page is present, then you can start the whole page. I want to see this section is present, then you can do present. Present and visible, right, is two different, has two different meaning in Selenium. But here is present is basically it has to be visible and it has to be there. Sometimes you'll see elements are there, physically there, but it's not visible, meaning a person cannot see the element still exist on the page. Okay, it's because maybe it is using hidden, it is hidden by something, right? So we'll learn about those later, hidden elements. Not selected value, right? So this is not selected value is going to be for drop down. And drop down have values that you select, right? And so we want to see which selected value, and you want to compare and say, okay, this value has not been selected, and then you want to move forward if it's not the case. So that will assert that, not text. Not text, basically the text is not there, right? So that text should not be there, right? So you're doing the assertion like that. Present is just opposite of not present, which is something should be there, right? Selected label, right? Label is what? Anytime you see a text field, this is a label, okay? This is a label, this is a label. If that label was selected or not. Then you got selected value. If this value was selected, or when you click on it, the value is basically was selected, or it could be for more than just working with a text field. Same thing, we got text and we got title. Title is, it has its own method. Title is every page should have a title. So you can, before you do anything, you want to say, look, I want to make sure the page title is this. I want to do a title check, right? And then you got yourself value. So you can also do value check. So let's say this text field has a value of what? So if I click on it, oh, it's recording a whole bunch of stuff. Okay, we'll discard that. So this text field has value. So I'm going to go ahead and do value now. Value, and let's go in here. See, it has the value, and this is coming in an integer. Okay, this is not a string. When you look for text, you're looking for string with 2 quotation on both sides. When you are looking for a value, you're looking for actual type of um, how do I say, data types, which is in this case is integer. So what else? Let's see. Right click in here.
I'm sorry, for the purpose of the homework, you want us to do assert and then present, like, 'cause since that's the one you've been doing most of the
Right.
time.
As long
Okay.
as like look, assert is, I'll explain the remaining ones, but assert is this is something that actually makes the test case what it is, right? A test case is not a test case unless it has assertion. So just keep that in mind. Now, in order for you to do assertion, you may have to store something. You might have to say, look, I'm going to store this text ahead of time, and then I want to compare later. So you can store text and you can compare that text later. Similarly, verify. Verify and assert is 2 different things. Verify will say, you know what, it will try to verify the information that you try to verify is the same exact list that assert has. The only difference between assert and verify is that assert will fail your test and it will be read and it will not continue. Verify will fail only the step that does not match or does not really satisfy, and then it will start testing the remaining. So that is also good for some cases, some test cases. Maybe you're checking for 100 things and you want to know if out of 100 things how many of the items is failed. So you can actually use verify, where it will say, okay, 3 items failed and all like 97 of them passed, which is better than saying all of them failed because something failed in the beginning, right? Or 1 item failed, so I didn't run the rest of it, right? It's like you ask somebody, your let's say your brother, to go and buy grocery, and he doesn't find one thing, and he comes back home without doing the whole thing, without finding the remaining items. So verify will, what it will do, if it doesn't find the one item, it will skip and then continue with the remaining. So you can have 100 or 200 checks and it will do all of it. Wait for. Wait for is something is that that we'll also use. So wait for is when you want to wait for an element to finish loading. So you can say, okay, wait for something to be visible, or wait for something to disappear, then do something. So you have to choose which element you're waiting for to disappear, which element do you want it to be editable, or visible or present. You see 2 different meaning, and then not present or not visible, right? So wait for is used to make a dynamic wait, meaning if an element will require 5 seconds, or sometimes it will take 10 seconds, or sometimes it will take 2 seconds to disappear, then and you use not present, then it will wait up to a default time, which is 30 seconds. It will wait up to 30 seconds to make sure that that element disappears before doing the rest of the steps. Okay, so then, all right, let's see, inspect. Okay, so we explain all 4 right here, right? So experiment it, like I said, there is no better way to learn but doing it yourself. Coding and doing automation, I'll give you guys one, I'll save you guys some time by saying this, is that if you don't practice and face an issue, if you don't really make mistakes and face an issue while you do your homework, or maybe like you're practicing or writing some test cases, then you're never going to find out and learn. You're always going to feel like you're missing something. I can explain 2 hours, or I can explain the half a day. It will still not work for you, because here we're presenting, and then you should be able to take that and build on top of that. Your knowledge should be built. Right now, your knowledge is there as, oh yeah, this tool exists, and I can use it for automation. But now, can you use it for automation? So your at homework now, it should be, okay, let me use it for this and that application. So find some application that is more like this. I would say calculator, something that has no crazy stuff in it. Because again, at work, we're not going to probably use this tool. This is a tool for an application like this, lightweight, something that is straightforward. It cannot do significant amount of tests on an application that is so complex, because again, that's why we're using Selenium. That's why many companies out there using Selenium and another tool called Cypress, which is getting popular day by day. So I'm gonna be showing you guys Cypress after Selenium because again, once you learn Selenium with Java, then you will appreciate Cypress because Cypress is significantly easier. And it will probably it is more, I would say it is pretty cool. Like it is in terms of the way it works, it's cooler, but it only works with one browser and it only works with one language. That's the down part. Selenium has more flexibility, works with more than one language, it works with more than one browser, and you can do whatever you want with Selenium with Java, right? All right, guys. So again, I know that we're running out of our time. We should be done at 2, but I'm taking a few extra minutes. Uh, Now that we explained Selenium, all of the assertion that we can do, the steps, I don't think I have to explain, right? Because do you guys like anything that I need to explain? Just go ahead and tell me right now to do your part. 5 is the minimum test cases. When you write a video, when you do a video and you post it, just do your best test case and post a video. I want everybody to see your test case, and then people that really don't do anything, the next class, I want you to spend uh, 2 to 3 minutes explaining why you didn't have the time or what happened, right? What happened, because it's a teamwork. Everybody's doing something. So as a team, you guys are finishing something. But if you didn't do it, then I want you to explain to your team what really happened to you. Maybe you had some really significant issues, and it's a valid issue, so it's fine. But I want people to understand one thing is that we have a strict agenda for 3 months, and if you guys do the homework, only then we can move forward. In our previous sessions or previous classes, we had to repeat a lot of classes at the end, is because people didn't do homeworks. And so
Right. How we attach this thing to WhatsApp page? Like we just do it and just a little confused about it.
yeah, sure. So you can use your phone, like if it's easier for you, like obviously many people with Mac, what you can do, you can use, hold on, what's that called? QuickTime Player. And again, like you guys are QA engineers or will be a QA engineer, so you should have a higher standard in terms of technology, right? So if you have to download an app, do it. But the easiest thing you can do is do a screen recording. You see new screen recording, you click on it and you select what needs to be recorded. You just play your test and start running your test, right? And then where did it go? Okay, it's
In
trying to.
Windows, you can do Windows Alt R. It will record your screen.
So say it one more time.
In Windows, if you want to record your screen, do Windows Alt R. It will record your screen.
Okay. So like I said, you guys, that's up to you guys. Okay, how this is relevant to work, right? The recording part. When you work in a team and your team is in California and you're in New York, and the developer says, "Hey, can you show me what's happening on your side?" and you don't want to FaceTime him, you don't want to like have a meeting, you want to send him a video, then you can say like, "Hey, let me send you a video. If you still have questions, then you can do the meeting." So you still have to do the video. You can imagine like you're using your iPhone and then capturing the video and send it to him. He's probably he's gonna laugh, because you remember your title. Just always remember your title. Like you're gonna be a QA engineer. So you should always have that higher standard for yourself in terms of technology. You're not an ordinary person who's using internet for Facebook and paying bills. Okay, so just have that higher standard. Then you'll probably go to that extra length and do something. But if you kind of like, this is your third class, and if you kind of like falling apart already, like, that's probably when you want to say, you know what, let me just follow what they're saying. Then you'll be enforced. Otherwise, these 3 months is going to turn out to be 2 years for you. All right, so yeah, yes.
I sent a
Let me
text.
stop recording, because then this is not gonna, and then we'll take questions for next 10-15 minutes, and then we'll be over for the day. How do where's the record button go?
Bye.
Yes.